That's right. My wife has been raving about a couple books lately, so I went ahead and let her pick my reads for the month of June. And that's what you're getting today, folks. My June reading wrap-up with 5 selections that surprised and delighted, courtesy of my wife. Thank you, Chelsea. First up, Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. My wife lived in Brooklyn Heights during college, about a half a mile or a 10-minute walk away from Pineapple Street. So there's a little bit of nostalgia there for her with this one, of course. For me, it's been one of my most fun reads this summer. As Jackson's debut novel, her day job is as an editor at Knopf. This book is a fast-paced satire examining the lives of the focal Stockton family, who own the Fruits neighborhood of the Brooklyn Heights waterfront. So much of this neighborhood, in both the book and the real world, used to be owned by the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some really nice buildings like the Watchtower, the big old newspaper operation, the Hotel Bossert, and in the story, the Stocktons bought up all of this property. The story's told from the alternating perspectives of the 2 daughters of the family, Darlie and Georgiana, and also their sister-in-law, Sasha, their brother Cord's new wife. It's been compared to Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan for the affluence it portrays, but it's rife with a number of references to big US institutions in the world of business and finance, and it's a pretty decent story of how millennials are coming to manage the great wealth transfer of the 21st century. And overall, it really is quite a clever, smart bit of writing. On multiple occasions reading this book, I found myself laughing out loud at these characters' remarks and their internal thoughts about things. Check it out if you want a delightful romp through Brooklyn in 2023, particularly as seen from the eyes of the 1%. Next, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. First off, before I say anything else, I just want to say how much I really deeply enjoyed this book. And I didn't imagine that I would, but it touched me in a deep way. I really resonated with this one. I didn't expect to find so much in the story, but it's through my wife that I initially connected with it. Honestly, the book brought me to tears at one point that really particularly resonated with me in Benny's story as she's listening to her deceased mother's message to her, just apologizing for the fact that she had passed on and taught Benny, her daughter, some really ingrained intergenerational behaviors as a method of coping, specifically adopting the practice of turning away and walking away from people, picking up your life for the sake of self-preservation. As a mixed-race Asian American woman, Filipino, Spanish, Chinese, Scandinavian, and you wouldn't believe it by looking at her, but Nigerian descent, she connected to this book in ways that are really well articulated in the author's note here, which I'll just read from Wilkerson's own words. Even when stories are made up, they typically contain emotional truths. It is my hope that the emotional notes in this story will resonate with people of various backgrounds who have thought about shifting concepts of home and family, about longing, loss, and second chances, and of course, love. We met in grad school when she was doing research on identity, culture, and food, topics which feature quite prominently to the story of Black Cake. In the book, Charmaine Wilkerson uses the actual black cake as a device, a recipe that contains a history, bonding people together across time, place, generation, migration, diaspora, and separation. Beyond the story, both of us really connected to the characters, which Wilkerson says most of the characters in Black Cake are people who do not quite fit into the boxes that others have set up for them. They struggle against stereotypes and the gulf between their interests and ambitions and the lives that other people expect them to lead based on gender, culture, or class. I'll also note here, which Wilkerson also does, that despite the use of some historical and present-day context in this story, It's primarily about the emotional lives of the invested characters. And it's a stylistic choice, similar to how the island of origin for the characters is never explicitly named. She does name it in the author's note, but it's instead referred to in the text as the island. The book is fiction and intended to be read as such, which is liberating for the reader. I know I've said a lot here without speaking about the content of the book too specifically, but she bakes up a really incredible treat here. Wilkerson folds the ingredients into this black cake multiple times in progressive complexity, not revealing their true nature or taste or the implications of these characters' actions up until the very end, the satisfying conclusion. Itself a huge theme in the book, and something I've been guilty of in the past myself. There's a lot of really tender moments in this amazing story, and you'd have to have a heart of stone not to feel them. Anyways, Wilkerson's novel will soon debut as a Hulu original series later this year, so if anything I've said here piques your curiosity, do go check this book out. I would very much recommend checking this book out before you jump into the series. This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. My wife started a book club during the pandemic with her friends, and this is one of their recent picks that she has recommended to me. The book's a big hit from last summer by Emma Straub, as I mentioned, who's actually the daughter of author Peter Straub, and in many ways is compared by a lot of people to Midnight Library, although the magical engine of this book is much more explicitly time travel, kind of halfway in between Back to the Future and Groundhog Day. The story of the book is about Alice, a 40-ish woman who's learning to navigate the impending death of her father, also a beloved author, certain parallels between Straub and the character here. As her father's health continues to decline, she learns to grapple with this in a very unexpected way by stumbling upon the fact that the guardhouse at the end of her street, kind of apartment complex, Pomander Walk in the Upper West Side of New York City, is actually a time travel portal. And if you fall asleep in this guardhouse at a certain time of night on a certain day, she is transported back to the day of her 16th birthday, complete with her existing 40 years of lived experience intact. This allows her to make different choices in an attempt to shift the course of her life and her father's impending demise. As a reader, you can really feel the pull between being a teen in the 90s and 40 or so in modern day, and seeing your most deeply loved ones at different fragmentary moments in their lives. You really feel it as the reader. It takes Alice a lot to come to terms with the nature of her life and her father's life and death, who she loves so much. But ultimately, she does undergo the journey after using this time travel portal quite a bit. There are pieces of this book that I think many people might enjoy better than Midnight Library, like Straub's writing style specifically. I really enjoyed it for what it was. Thanks, Amanda and Nicole. Next, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. My wife is originally from SoCal, so there's that connection, okay? And I read this as a palate cleanser, which is really kind of what it is. I've heard a number of other booktubers echo a similar sentiment here. I'm surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did for what it was, which is a beach read, light, easy, short, not too serious of subject matter. And let's be forthright here. This is not the typical sort of book that I read by any means. The story covers one very important day in the life of the Riva family, specifically the four siblings and focally Nina Riva, as she prepares to throw one of the greatest parties of all time at her house after her husband has left her. It's an annual party, but the husband leaving her component is unique and very important. It brings in connections from other Taylor Jenkins Reid books in the way that she does, like, for example, the presence of Carrie Soto, the titular heroine from Carrie Soto is Back. I'd actually recommend this book if you want a light, kind of mid-80s period piece, or if you've read any of Reed's other novels and enjoyed them. I don't know if I'll necessarily be reading Carrie Soto or Evelyn Hugo, but I enjoyed this one. 3 3/4 out of 5 stars. Yeah. Lastly, Please Report Your Bug Here by Josh Riedel. So we used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area for 5 years, and this book is very stereotypical of that part of the United States. In an endearing, good way. It's not too much. It's actually quite a novel sci-fi story from Riedel, who was himself the first employee of Instagram. In the book, Riedel's protagonist, Ethan Block, is one of the first employees at a startup called Date, a dating app that conceals some unexpected features and leads us on a sci-fi adventure where Ethan must come to wrestle with a perilous corporate acquisition while discovering the nature of the unexpectedly kind of reality-bending technology that he's working with here. And full spoilers, but it's effectively portals that transport you to other worlds. It was pretty good. I also didn't expect to like this one as much as I did. But there's so many moments and scenes that are just so quintessentially San Francisco that I couldn't help but smile and enjoy this. How do I communicate what I mean about this? There's one scene where the Date founder and his girlfriend are at a restaurant in the East Bay, which basically mirrors the intrinsically Bay Area worlds that my wife and I kind of circulated in when we were there. My wife worked at a couple like organic, sustainable, vegetarian food companies. To this day, my wife still geeks out about having met Alice Waters when she was partnering with Conscious Kitchen. Let me just read. You like it? She ran her fingers over the fresh ink and told me about her interest in gardening and environmental justice while the pizza heated. She brought up Alice Waters' edible schoolyard project and her own ideas for revolutionizing our relationship with food. She was in the middle of explaining companion planting when the founder interrupted her to ask about our slices. This book is full of just little Bay Area and tech world tidbits, so if you think you might enjoy that at all, I'd recommend checking it out. And those were my books of June. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books or would like to, having watched this now. I always love discussing these with you, and it's why I do this channel. Thanks for watching, and please also subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. As for me, it's summer, so I'm gonna go read a book outside. See you next time.